You can't tell me no. I'm not. You're not gonna let me ask my question.
Well,
or make a point.
If you're going to continue on this issue of marriage,
we're not on the issue of marriage. We're on the issue of the whole.
We have to agree to disagree on this.
Glory. We're on the issue of this whole thing about racial profiling.
Yes, and
we're dealing with
we're
dealing with the gender issue because you're an expert in that area.
Well, we haven't talked about racial profiling.
I know. Hold on. Just hold on. If on this whole issue of racial profiling, it is something that has been. It's a notion that's been made up by.
It's not a notion that's been made up.
Let me finish the point, and then you can respond.
The point, please.
Glory, calm down.
I'm calm. I just don't want to deal with anything that's ridiculous.
Glory, calm down. The whole issue about racial profiling is something that is made up by racist black people who don't want to deal with the real issues that are happening or going on in the black community, so they blame it on cops. They blame it on white folks. Racial profiling doesn't exist. If racial profiling existed for black people, it would exist for white people, for Hispanics, for Asian, because you have all races of people who are being arrested or stopped on the street at some point. But it's only the blacks who don't want to deal with the reality of what's wrong with black people that are calling it racial profiling. Okay, so I've heard that. I think it's a very interesting concept. I think it has no foundation in reality or the truth. The problem with your concept is this. We don't live in a society that fell out of the sky. Let me take a quick break, Glory. We'll come back and let you finish that point and take some calls. Welcome back to the show. We're going to take your calls in a few minutes, folks. I am talking about racial profiling, gender issues, and other issues concerning race in our country today. I have with me an expert on the issue. She is an attorney, Gloria Brown Marshall. She's written about these issues. She's represented several organizations, the NAACP, Southern Poverty Law Center, and others on these issues. And if you'd like to speak to my guests, we will get to your calls at 888-77-53773. Gloria, the problem that I find with this so-called racial profiling issue concerning black folks is that just as black people have overstated racism over the last 50 years, they're doing it in this issue of racial profiling. For example, Governor David Paterson has done or is doing a poor job in running the state of New York. And there is an attempt now to vote him out, and he is crying racism. He started to blame the media or call them racist for exposing his lack of performance in New York. You had Professor Gates, who racially profiled a white officer. After the officer tried to look out for him, he carried on and acted like an idiot and blamed the white officer instead of doing what he should have done. And in Chicago, black-on-black crime is so bad now that they're openly fighting and killing one another in the streets. In front of officers, they're blaming that on race. At what point will black people stop calling it something else and deal with the reality of what's going on? And that is the lack of morality, the lack of family, the lack of responsibility and accountability in the black community. Well, my book, Race, Law, and American Society, 1607 to present, and that's available on Amazon. And once again, the title is Race, Law, and American Society, 1607 to present, published by Gloria Brown Marshall. I'm a professor of constitutional law at John Jay College in New York. My organization, the Law and Policy Group, has published a report on the status of black women and girls, as well as the U.S. Constitution in African American context. In all of my publications, in all of my research, in all of the work that I've done as a former civil rights attorney, I would have to say that the evidence stands that there is such a thing as racism. I mean, to listen to you, you would think there was no thing as slavery, which took place over 300 years. It's over now. It doesn't exist now. There's no thing such as segregation that took place over 100 years.
I mean, to listen to you, you would think this country fell out of the sky just as it is, with everybody getting along for the most part, and that there were no problems, and that black people blamed all their problems on race. But the same thing that there are problems of class within the white community. You would think there are no poor whites, the way you're looking at it, that all white people are doing well.
But Gloria, you're misreading.
I think
you're intentionally reading what I'm not saying.
You want to blame
Gloria,
black people.
You're not answering my question.
And I've answered.
You're evading the question. My point is, at some point, you guys gotta.
Thing that happens on black people.
Gloria,
on black people.
At some point,
I agree.
At some point, you people got to deal with the reality of what's...
You people seem to be in the group with the you people as well. So I don't know who or what is going on in your own family that you feel that all these other black people everywhere else have all these problems of delusion of racism, but only in your tight-knit little family is it that everybody just pulls himself up by their own bootstraps. But
that's true. That's how it is in my family.
There are books written by...
But, Gloria, these people are not telling the truth, though.
Black people exposing racism. White people have written books exposing racism. The racism exists just like sexism exists. Just like there's age discrimination.
Let me ask, Gloria. Let me ask. Hold on.
At some point in your life, but that exists, too. There's discrimination against disabled people.
Gloria,
there's discrimination against poor people. There's discrimination against people.
Gloria.
You act like discrimination doesn't exist in any form.
Gloria, how is racism preventing Governor Patterson from performing an excellent job in New York as governor?
Well, I'm
going
to agree with you with something. I'm going to actually agree with you on this point. Governor Patterson was brought into office, we know, because of Eliot Spitzer. And so, but you haven't said anything about white women. There are all white women and all white men involved with the Eliot Spitzer sex fiasco. But it seems like you just think only black people are having sex out of wedlock or having these types of affairs. But anyway, so we know that Eliot Spitzer was using the services of a prostitute. He was governor of New York.
I asked you about Patterson. Patterson, yes, Gloria.
You don't want to hear about what happened with white people. You just want to denigrate your own.
But Patterson is blaming. Patterson is blaming his lack of performance on racism.
Yeah, you know, I'm getting to that. Your question was 5 minutes long, so at least give me 1 minute to answer it. When Patterson came into office, he came in because Eliot Spitzer resigned.
We know that.
Whole thing. When I was very excited when Patterson came into office, I have been disappointed in his performance. That's why I said I agree with you on that point.
So what do you think about him blaming it on racism, though? How do you respond to the fact, instead of this guy taking responsibility for his own failure, he's blaming it on racism? What do you say about that?
I look at it, I read the remarks he made. I was in New York because I live in New York City and, you know, was watching him. It was on television, and they re-aired his remarks that he thought that he was getting an unfair deal by the media, especially the New York Post, as well as New York One, which is our cable news local station there, and that he felt that a white governor would not have been treated in this manner. I, for one, disagree partially with what he said. I think that he is not being taken seriously as a governor, primarily because, as most black people know, when you go into a situation, a job, you become a supervisor, manager of other people, especially a manager of white people, you have a heavier burden. People expect more from you, and he has not lived up to the expectations.
That's a shame, Gloria.
Of the job.
Gloria, you should be embarrassed.
You are embarrassed.
No, you should be embarrassed, Gloria.
We can agree to disagree.
But you just gave this guy an escape out of performing his job.
No,
it has nothing to do with dealing with white folks.
Well, basically, in the end, most women know that women have an added burden when they go do a job. Any person who's outside the majority group has an added burden when they go do a job because the expectation is higher. And there's more that's expected, but there's also this added criticism and other things that come with being anybody.
That's not true, Gloria.
Well, it might not be true for you because you live in your own special little world. But for the rest of the people in the rest of the world on this planet called Earth, if you are disabled and you're in a position in which you're going into a job, there's an expectation that you have to do better. You have to make sure.
Gloria, anytime you go to work, anytime you go to work, whether you're a man or a woman, you're expected to perform. It has nothing to do with your color or gender. You're expected to do your job.
Agree to disagree.
I'm sorry?
That's where we can agree to disagree.
But you guys just making up this stuff and not dealing with reality.
You're making up a reality that doesn't exist, but that helps you stay comfortable in this world, and that's fine.
Let's go to Guy out of Phoenix, Arizona.